I think we had his match of the 3 years. Ugh. I Yeah, it was a absolutely phenomenal match. Exactly. Well, not only that, the fact that I mean, it seems like Shingo had a chance to make it his own, much like Shibata did. And we haven't had since Shibata, we have not had a consistent never champion. I mean, that belt has changed hands. It's been around since 2012. We now have our 18th different champion. Not 18 different title runs, mind you, because Shibata held it 3 times. uh, Ishii held it 5 times. Goto held it 5 times. So when you look at the amount of title changes that belt has had since, even if you go back to Shibata Ishii at WrestleMania 10, if you look at the amount of times that belt has changed hands, it almost feels like it doesn't mean anything anymore. 30-second title reign, basically. I mean, granted, there's only been 18 people to hold it, but 32 different title reigns in 10 years, not even 10 years. That's embarrassing. And it Yeah, which was the best never match since Shibata Ishii at Wrestle Kingdom 10. Ugh, I just I don't know. I'm irritated by it. It felt like we finally had a champion to be behind. Like, I know people say Goto was a good champion and Ishii was, but and then of course Taichi was in that mix as well. But literally, it was like a year and a half where nobody had a successful title defense. Osprey, Ishii, Ibushi. And the list just goes on and on and on. Suzuki, and I was disappointed that he lost it to Suzuki, but then winning it back finally got him on that stage again. And then when he beat Cobb, I was starting to feel like, okay, we've got some momentum here. And then he goes into this match on Saturday morning, and I just wanted to cry at the end of it. I mean, like you said, it was a good match, but it wasn't a never match. It came across more like you said, a Tanahashi match. Right. No. Exactly. And I mean, it was starting to become, and now I guess Ibushi has said that he wants to combine the two belts, the Intercontinental and yeah. So, well, which I mean, let's face it, Sonata's not going to win the title. I mean, let's face it, he's just not. But yeah, I don't know. It ever since Goto won his first belt, his first time, I have not felt like the Never title has meant anything. Um, since then, I mean, granted, it did kind of launch Tai Chi and made Tai Chi into the wrestler that you know that he is now, which is a whole hell of a lot better than he was before he held the belt. But other than that, has it really launched anybody's career? Has it done what it did, what it was meant to be? It was meant. I don't think it launched. Yeah, but he brought legitimacy to it. Yeah, he brought legitimacy to it, which is the first time I felt like that belt's been legitimate since 2014. Um, yeah. Ugh, that's the one thing I despise about this title reign. I mean, I get where the premise came from, but the fact that it is constantly in every single one of his matches, it just drives me insane. Oh, I'm not either. I'm not either. It's just it's just the overuse of it. Like and it's a heel type tactic. It's not the golden boy face type tactic that Bushi is supposed to have. That's a heel tactic. So I don't know. And then of course I hate when he goes to his dark place and it doesn't actually do anything for his matches and just uh, Roddy Piper. Right. Right. And if he is, it's going to be like a 24-hour reign just to, hey, you've been so great with kind of like a Chris Benoit in WCW. You've been so great with us for so long. Let's just throw the belt on you for a day. Right. No. Well, with the way they treat the Never title, I think everybody's a Never guy now. Right. 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 Yeah. And I agree with that. But I do have to say that one of the most surreal matches I think I've ever seen. Um, and I never thought I would ever see anybody get hit over the head with a trash can lid in New Japan Wrestling. But Osprey Kojima. there were it really was, and the fact that we saw that style of match in New Japan was just it was one of those where I was just in awe the entire match. I also was kind of wondering until Kojima went through that table if he had signed some disclosure where he was not gonna get hit with anything. 'Cause it literally seemed like Osprey was taking all the bumps, all the headshots, all the table drops, and the ladder, everything, and it just felt to me like, did Kojima sign something where he's not gonna take any of those major bumps? Right. Goes through it. Oh, no, you went out the ladder, yeah. And it was also kind of funny because I mean, I'm used to when you see hardcore matches like this, you're used to those big tables and big ladders and all this stuff, and it was just kind of funny that they bring out this little tiny step stool, type of ladder, and I've always laughed about the ladder or the tables in Japan that are like a quarter they're a quarter the size of what the US tables are. So it still makes me chuckle, but to see that style of match, because I mean, that's one thing you and I have talked about and why I hate this KOPW title with Yano, because the one thing that Japan has always done is they've stayed away from gimmicks. Every now and then they'll throw a ladder match in or something, but they've really stayed away from these gimmick style matches. So it was really awkward watching this on NJPW, watching a match like this. Yeah, I mean that was just hardcore because they were fighting all over the arena, not necessarily beating the hell out of each other with trash can lids. Hmm. Yeah, and it was nice to see the Empire finally get a win too. Yep, on this card they got 2, so it was nice to see that maybe they're finally gonna start being something relevant. Um, but yeah, I enjoyed this match. I'm not gonna say I didn't enjoy the Shingo Tanahashi match. It was a good match for what it was, but it just wasn't what it should have been. I wanna see them beating each other up, and this was just a wrestling match. They did it just to make it, "Oh, hey, we've really messed this up now for the last 30 minutes, so let's make the 7 minutes, of an actual never match." Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yeah, that is definitely true. Yeah, and my favorite was when they showed Hiromu on screen, and he threw a pen at him. That was great too. I loved El Phantasmo on commentary. Yeah, versus the Walmart of Shingo. Yeah, he had some great one-liners. He no. Well, he mentioned it during the Osprey match too, where it's like, holy crap, we're at the 10-minute mark already. It seemed like every match um was busy, but not terrible. It just seemed like it every match, like you said, just kind of flew by. No, right? Yeah, yeah, and I mean, right, but I mean, it was a good card. It was better than expected. Um, but yeah, I mean, we talked about it. The Never title is just annoying. And the next one is the tag titles is the main event, right? Okay. I know that which will be a fun match. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, probably. Um, in WWE news, and we're gonna preview the Royal Rumble here in a little bit. I'm trying to push things along because I know you got a hard stop at around 11ish. But um, this week, the WWE Network sold the rights to their own network to allow the streaming service to be on the Peacock network, which does kind of make sense. USA is owned by NBC Universal, so you know, heading over there. But I don't know if you saw the details of this, but it's a 5-year streaming contract, and the contract is worth $1 billion. NBC paid to Vince for a 5-year contract. Some of the details on it, because we've been questioning, or I've been questioning, what are they going to do with the content? How are they going to do that? Well, it sounds like they're going to have their own 24/7 channel on Peacock Network. All of the Yep, yep. All of the current channel, or all the current pay-per-views, are still going to be streamed live, just like they are now. Um, the SmackDown and Raw, or SmackDown and, or I'm sorry, Raw and NXT are going to be available almost immediately, because they're owned by NBC already with the USA Network. So like on the WWE Network now, you have to wait a month because of you know USA wants their money's worth. Well, they're getting their money's worth because it's going to be on the same network, same parent company. Fox, nope, yep, SmackDown is going to be different because that's owned by Fox. So that's not gonna appear until after the airings are done on the Fox network. So that'll probably stay on its month-long cycle, like it is currently on the WWE Network. But it sounds like Raw and NXT are going to be almost immediate. They are moving over 17,000 hours of content. And what they said about this 17 hours of content, this is where it kind of gets me, because I don't know how they're doing this. But they're moving over the original series, like Stone Cold's podcast and the Undertaker's Last Ride thing, and all these original series. Oh, are they? Okay, yeah, those were coming over, but what they're doing is, according to the press release, they're going to be showing older shows back to the ECW, WCW era. And that kind of leads me, down a little rabbit. Oh, and then they're going to do one annual documentary. So that that kind of leads me a little bit down a rabbit hole here. What are they doing with the 80s content? Because WCW started what, 91? Right. Midwest. you know Right, and that, I mean, because right now the WWE Network only has like a million some subscribers, and Peacock Network has like 5 million. So it's a smart business move. I mean, you're getting $1 billion, plus you're opening your product to 4 million more households. Yeah, it's going to be. This is just a U.S. only move. Um, everybody else in the United Kingdom, everything is still going to have the WWE Network. It's just, in the U.S. here, it's going to be closing shop and moving to the Peacock Network. Can watch the Four Horsemen back in their heyday, but we can't. You know, yeah, and I mean, but the way that the article was written, I don't know. I haven't actually checked. I've been kind of, because I of the uncertainty. I've been watching a lot of '80s wrestling on there lately. Because I don't know what's going to be there. So I'm kind of going back to, some of the Survivor Series, the old school Survivor Series where we actually had Survivor matches every match, and the first couple of Royal Rumbles and everything. Um, but because with all the uncertainty of what's going to be there March 18th. But it was just the way that the article was written that made me kind of take notice, because it wasn't back to the NWA. It was back to WCW and ECW. And that's where I kind of perked up, because ECW really started, what, 93? WCW changed from NWA in 90 or 91, one of those two. And that just leads to like what's going to happen with all that 80s wrestling, which for somebody like me, all that 80s wrestling is the selling point. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Right. Right, right. Um, yeah, but maybe they'll do like a tiered thing where 4.99 you get this much of the WWE Network, but if you jump up to the premium, you get all of it or something. Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, I really kind of want to. I can't wait. I honestly, I'm nervous about it. I'm watching as much of the old school stuff as I can right now, just because. I don't know what it's going to look like, but you know, it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. Another thing that came out this week, oh, was the Undertaker. Had a No, he had an interview this week where he called current WWE product soft, and then talked about how, it said some things about, how they used to have guns and knives in the locker rooms and all this stuff, and how the current wrestlers are just soft, and they're not built like they were back in his day. And then Bill Goldberg piles on and reiterates it, and then Roman Reigns came out and talked about how, first of all, was security so laxed back in Taker's day that they could get guns and knives through security? First of all, secondly, to call it soft is crazy, because just because they're not doing unprotected headshots and things like that, instead they have to work towards a PG audience, which is a whole lot harder to do than it was back in the Attitude Era, where Stone Cold could just come out, drink beer, and flip everybody off. Uh, and then he had mentioned that, what did he say? That he respects the Undertaker, but he thinks that it's an old retired guy trying to sound gangster. And then he said, and Bill Goldberg is just whatever. That line was great. And I guess he talked about, no, he didn't. He walked in the door, had three moves, got right to the top, and was a legend ever since. It's not like the Undertaker, who paid his dues as Mark Calloway and in you know NWA before that, and then went on to have this legendary career. I mean, I kind of agree somewhat with him that the wrestlers are soft, but I don't know how you can call them soft when you look at the fact that a lariat used to be a finishing move and now it's a transitional move, or a drop kick, used to be a finishing move and now it's something that's like the second move that they do in a match. Right. On No, never. And yeah, okay, granted they had some headshots. They maybe took some dangerous chair shots that they probably shouldn't have. Um, but I'm glad that that's not a part of wrestling anymore. Because you don't have people that are going to be laid up with a broken neck by the time they're 15, 5 years into their career, because of stupidity like that. Having it be more of a, I don't know. I disagree with Taker's take on it. I don't feel like the modern era is in if anything, I feel like they're tougher than they were back then, because these are guys that are out there 300 out of 365 days a year. As opposed to, back in Taker's time, did Hulk Hogan ever work a house show ever? Oh, did he? I see. I don't remember, but ultimately, I don't think they were working as many days and as definitely as hard of matches when 45 minutes of it were placeholders. Right. No, I mean, nowadays, it's not like it was where. Right. Yeah, that's kind of the way it came across to me too. But I mean, if you think about it, when you compare 80s and early 90s wrestling to wrestling of today, um, these guys were taking, like Roman said, drop kicks and lariats, and they would have headlocks that would last 25 minutes. Um, now it's constant action because that's what the fan base wants now. The fan base doesn't want those transition moves, and now you've got moves like a Canadian destroyer as a transition move. So these guys are taking harder bumps. There's not as much rest time during the matches. And, to be honest, I would compare with the type of bumps and the frequency of them that today's wrestlers are probably tougher than 80s wrestlers were. Yeah. Hmm. Kicks and punches and right. And I mean, all the moves off the top, the moves on the outside, the moves on the ring apron, just a power bomb is a transition move now, where a power bomb used to be. I mean, even Taker when he came back with his um, motorcycle gimmick, his finisher was a power bomb. Now a power bomb is basically off the top rope, and it's used as a transition move. It's the severity of the bumps that they're taking now is just it pales. The 80s pale in comparison to what they're doing now in that ring. Yeah, it's gotten out of control. Right. Yeah, it's every single match and it's everybody doing it. It's not like, it used to be only the luchadors would pull it out in every third or fourth match, and now it's literally Braun Strowman's out there doing it. Hmm. Right. Yeah, and I mean the same thing with like the Canadian Destroyer. That was one of the sickest. Yeah, the drive-by is another one, or the Superman punch that happens 14 times every match. And I can't say that for sure. I've seen Roman's mic work, and I'm absolutely in love with the guy and what he's done with his character. But I haven't seen an actual Roman Reigns match in a while, so I don't know if he still does his Superman punch 15 times a match or not. I definitely will. Speaking of tonight, oh, oh, I kind of like that idea, except for the fact that we've already seen Roman destroy him in gimmick matches already. Well, I haven't either, but the last two matches with Owens has been. I think one was a Hell in a Cell match, and I can't remember what the other one was. But at least it's not Adam Pierce. So, and those it was originally supposed to be Adam Pierce against Roman Reigns. Yeah, except Adam Pierce retired 6 years ago. Good point. But um, the entrance to the Royal Rumble, the first 2 for the men have been announced. Did you see who they are? Did you see who they are? Yeah. I'm kind of a little bit shocked that they announced that ahead of time. Same thing with the Braun Strowman return on Friday. Wouldn't you want those kind of big surprises for the actual Rumble itself and not right. Well, like Strowman coming back the Friday before, that would have typically been a number 30 entrant or something like that. That wouldn't have been announced 2 days before the Rumble, and then announcing that Edge is gonna return too, is I mean, I'm used to them announcing who's gonna be number 1 ahead of time, but announcing a big return like Edge as number 2, a day before, and then Strowman coming in, who's not been on TV, what, since he lost the belt? I don't know either, but, I know he hasn't been on. No, he was injured. He's been out injured. Same thing with Strowman. They've both been out injured. Yeah, true. I think he had 3 and they were all with Randy. He had the Royal Rumble, and then he had 2 with Randy, and then he got injured in what they were calling was the world's greatest match ever, or the greatest match in history or whatever. Yeah, so and that was he got injured in that match. But I mean, that was what, 8 months ago now? It's like I just don't understand their thought process of why you would not save these reveals for the actual Rumble and announce them ahead of time. And then was out well, yeah, true. Ugh. I swear to Christ, if they put the belt on Goldberg again, I'm not even gonna transfer over when it goes to Peacock. I'll just be done. I've watched enough of the early stuff that I'm okay with never watching it again. If they put the belt on Goldberg. Uh, well, look at AJ Styles. Right. 12. Are you talking about when he first came back or his crushing everybody style? Okay, yeah, that was 15. Well, I mean, yeah, you're right. It's really not. I mean, when Seth held the title, it was a little bit less of that. Right. And to echo your comment, I've been a Drew McIntyre fan since way back when he was using the Future Shock as his finisher. When he was considered, when McMahon was personally behind him before he got fired, went to Impact and What Culture Wrestling and all that stuff. Uh, I've always been a huge fan of Drew McIntyre, but you'd mentioned that, hey, Drew McIntyre can't get you to watch the network. If AJ Styles can't get me to watch every single week, there's nothing WWE can do that will make me watch. AJ Styles, who in my opinion is the greatest of all time, right up there with Jericho. And I've been a huge fan of him since. I first saw him back in 2002. You know, if he can't make me watch WWE wrestling, nothing can. Yeah, and I mean, I've kind of given ever since NXT went on national TV, and they've changed their product up so much that it's hard for me to even watch them on NXT. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't think I have either. I mean, Thatcher and Ciampa, I guess, did have their match. Right. I don't, and like, not to knock anybody that does love WWE, good for you. It's just not my style of wrestling. It just, I don't like, it's not my style of storytelling. It's not my style of wrestling. I'm just not a huge fan of the product that's out there. And I hate to say it, but since AEW has been um, kind of Americanizing their product, I'm starting to feel the same way about them. They still put on great matches every week. They still have some good storylines and some great talent, but they're not what they said they were going to be. True. I They just really didn't do anything to change the world. That's all I'm gonna say. It's the only right. Yeah. Yeah, that's my goal. That's my goal is to do that. It all depends on when the toddler goes home, goes back to his mom's. But that is my plan. And it's probably the only WWE pay per view that I get excited for every year. Just because I mean, people talk about WrestleMania, but to me, the Royal Rumble is what shapes the rest of the year. Yeah, there's that too. I mean, I'm an avid What Culture watcher. I love Simon Miller's Ups and Downs, so I watch those, every day, and things like that. But so I kind of have a little bit of a inkling of the way they're going, and who should be the ones winning the matches. But ultimately, I'm with you too. I haven't watched the weekly episodes, so I don't know who's really on fire and who's supposedly the big bad for the men's Royal Rumble. That's a good point. That's a good point. And I think that's probably what started souring me on WWE TV was the fact that they kept pushing the old stars and holding down the new stars. You had to be something special to break through, like a Seth Rollins type of talent to break through that whole, I don't want to say glass ceiling, but to not be a butt of a joke when they decide to run out a legend. Yeah. Carmella was a joke when we used to watch it. She might be different now. Mhm. How far Shayna's star has fallen. Ever since she got eliminated by Charlotte Flair at last year's Rumble, her star has fallen. Right. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I just remember how dominant she was in NXT, and it just hasn't. But then again, like you said, we don't watch it weekly, so I could be completely off base with this. If you're not one of the four horsewomen, basically. Which everything I hear about, I haven't personally watched Dominic, but he's only 5 matches into his wrestling career, not W wrestling career. And everything I'm hearing about him is he's a future star. So, and when you and I, when we think about Dominic, we remember that kid from back in what 2004 when Eddie, right after Eddie had died. So to see him be in the ring and performing as well as he is just a great feeling all around. That was a long time ago. Yeah, especially now that it's no longer Adam Pierce, that it's Kevin Owens. Because when I was hearing Adam Pierce being the fact that he hasn't been a full time wrestler, and I looked at both title matches going, ugh, really? We have to trot out Goldberg again, and then we're going to put another retired wrestler in against Roman. So I'm glad that they swapped that out. Yes and no. I mean, he's a great wrestler, and that he was a great wrestler. Um, yeah, that's true. I mean, he's been an authority figure on SmackDown for the last I don't know 6 7 months, I think. But you're right. Nobody realizes there's a lot of people that since he retired in 2014, there's a lot of people that have no clue how great he was. And I think that's all I have. Peter Avalon back to his pretty Peter Avalon gimmick. Got rid of the librarian gimmick, so I'm happy about that. Well, he's been back for the last couple weeks. Remember, he got trounced last week, but he's back to his gimmick, his pretty Peter Avalon gimmick, which I think suits him so much better than that librarian. That was one thing I was always upset about was that they went with that librarian gimmick for him. Well, it was a joke that went on 2 years too long. But other than that, I don't have anything. Um, we'll reconvene tonight for the Royal Rumble. It might be a little bit after the start of it, depending on children, but we'll reconvene then. What it starts at what 7, 6, 6? Okay. Okay. All right. That sounds good. So I'll talk to you then, I guess. Goodbye.